Tilley, and welcome you again on this show called Activism Africa, where we shall be handling matters Africa and more so matters Pan-Africanism. Welcome once again. Mugambi, please get us that music. There's music.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. There's some music on my background. Unfortunately, I live near the church, so they are worshiping, and it is a bit difficult for me to go and interfere with them, telling them to reduce. Maybe that tendency of churches to cause sound pollution. Yeah,
We understand, but you would have preferred living in a very quiet environment. You would have chosen to be in a different place today for the sake of having a better sound for the show. Regardless, welcome, Mr. Mugambi Kibwi. Welcome on the show. I don't think she'll be able to have you in a better way when you have this kind of noise coming through. Can you hear
pardon,
me?
please. Pardon?
Can you hear me?
Not
You
really.
can hear us.
Pardon?
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you right now.
Okay, let us go ahead with the show. Hopefully that we shall be able to hear you and you'll be able to hear us. Welcome again, dear viewers, to Call to Activism Africa. Today we are hosting Mugambi Kibwi, the president of Pan-African Students Association in Kenya, and we shall be discussing the state and prospects of Pan-Africanism in Kenya and Africa at large. We shall be looking at Pan-Africanism. Kibwi, our guest tonight, is the president of the Pan-African Students Association, and together with my co-host Tilley, we shall be handling matters Pan-Africanism on this show today. Kibwi, briefly, tell us about yourself, but also about what you know in regard to Pan-Africanism.
Okay, thank you so much. First, I normally introduce myself in this manner. When I was born, my mother called me Dennis. My grandfather called me Mugambi. And I had to adopt the name of my father, who is Kibwi. And as I grew up, I came into realization that when my mother called me Dennis, it was under what we call mental slavery of religion, whereby in Africa, most of our parents are required, due to norms maybe of churches and this Western culture, to call their children, their kids, English name. I totally disagreed with that idea, of which it brought some conflicts between me and my mother. But she later came to understand me, and she later came to accept what I wanted. I sent a deed roll to withdraw Dennis from my official names, of which still I'm in the process of completion. I've not already completed, but I've already withdrawn Dennis. And as per now, I'm Mugambi Kibwi. That is Mugambi, son of Kibwi. Those are African names, no European name. I was born and raised in Meru County. Meru County Kenya, we have different counties. We have 47 counties, Meru County being one of them. I was born and raised from there. I attended my school, my lower level, that is primary level, in Meru County. I attended my secondary level in a different county, Pan-Africanism County. After completion of secondary level, I qualified to join university, and I joined the university in a different county, that is Kilifi County. It is in coastal regions or coastal parts of Kenya, when Meru is in central region of Kenya, where Mount Kenya is located. So currently, as we talk, I'm within Kilifi County at Pwani University. I'm pursuing a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science. Initially, I was invited at Pwani University to do education sciences, but due to the love of politics and the relation with people I have, I also had to change and pursue my path and pursue what I love most, that is political science. So I'm in second year. For me, I can say so far so good. I can't complain. I'm so happy. I'm combining political science and history because of the love I have still for Africa. I need to dig deep about the history of Africa. I need to know so many things concerning Africa. That's why I did not choose maybe to combine political science with IT or with economics or with any other maybe principle. I just decided to combine it with history. Yeah, maybe I can say in simple terms that is who Mugambi is. Maybe to end, I'm also the president of Pan-Africa Student Association in Kenya. I'm also the president of Meru County University Student Association. That is student association in Meru County. That is country which I come from. I'm also a leader in various organizations like My Leader Kenya, SDGs, and many others. So maybe I can't maybe explain all of them or outline all of them here, but most important here is Pan-Africa Student Association. Yeah, that is Mugambi Kibwi.
Very impressive CV that you have, Kibwi. Welcome to our show. We are happy to host you here. You have a very interesting CV, especially as an aspiring political scientist and a history scholar. That's quite impressive. Now, may you please take the viewers through your understanding of Pan-Africanism? How do you understand Pan-Africanism? Or what is the history of Pan-Africanism that you champion today?
Okay, for me, my understanding, I do believe different peoples have different understanding and different view of things. That's why we are human beings, because our mental capacity or mental understanding of things must be a bit different. So for me, I understand Pan-Africanism as an idea which came maybe with few peoples, because for something to come up, there must be maybe 2 or 3 people who maybe comes to an agreement of working on a certain direction. So for me, I believe Pan-Africa emerged as an idea in 19th century, which was later transformed into maybe into a program or what can we call it, into an ideology to sell to African peoples living in diaspora. Maybe it was pioneered by Du Bois. So he had to sell that idea to people living in diaspora and people living in Africa continent as well, to try and liberate Africans from at that time they were not fighting mental slavery, which we are fighting right now, because I believe our today Pan-Africanism should be fighting mental slavery. At that time they were fighting colonialism, slavery, that is human slavery. Maybe they were trying to regain Africa dignity, which already had been eroded by Europeans the moment they invaded Africa, and so on. So that is my simple understanding of Pan-Africanism, of which still I do accept different ideas because people have different views. Yeah.
Great. You rightly say the history of Pan-Africanism is from the Western world. Of course, you have mentioned Du Bois. There are quite many other actors when you look at the history of Pan-Africanism, but also we understand that the initial promoters of Pan-Africanism were looking at ways through which they would liberate themselves from slavery, from bondage, from the atrocities committed against Black people in the Western world first. But again, you need to also note that it was, in a way, used to champion the liberation of Africa from colonial rule. You would be able to talk about people like Kwame Nkrumah and others, how they worked with the people in Europe, people in the US, and others, and how they are able to use the ideology and then use it to divide the country. Now, that comes my question to you. What has been the success of the Pan-African movement towards liberating Africa?
Okay, for me, I agree and I accept that Pan-Africa succeeded in some ways in trying to liberate Africans, because first thing they were something that they were much concerned of. They were championing, or they were against colonization. So they were championing for the colonization of African countries. That was among their aims, or their key aims, or their key objectives, of which we find that most Africans, up to 1998 or 1999 there, almost all African countries gained independence from Europeans. Yeah. Again, they also succeeded in bringing sense of that spirit of Africanism, that sense of being Africa, that what someone like Marcus Garvey was championing for in another continent which is not Africa. Yeah, so for me, Pan-Africanism has succeeded to help Africans liberate from themselves, from colonialists. What they have not succeeded in is liberating us from mental slavery, because the moment Europeans left us, they left their way of living, their culture with us, and they had already eroded our culture. And until now, up to now, we as Africans who have not been able to maybe reclaim, or maybe to bring back our culture, maybe, yeah.
Welcome. Thank you very much. Welcome, Lynda Tilley, our co-host. Lynda will come on the show.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And thank you so much, Mugambi from Kenya, who's joining us today, the president of the Pan-Africanist Students Association. It's wonderful to have you with us. Thank you so much. I've just been listening a little bit backstage. The producers just asked, I believe, I don't know, I think it might be church music or loud music that's coming through on the sound of the actual footage, and we can't hear Kato when he's speaking. Is there any way that you can close windows or something so that the music is not so loud, because it's coming through onto the show, and we want to just be able to hear everything that you have to say.
Mugambi, back to you. We have challenges hearing you. Just as I told you, we don't know when I can be having the solution to that. Mugambi Kibwi, the sound in your background makes harder for us to hear you. Do you hear us?
Yeah, for me, I can hear you. As I said, that noise is coming from a church which is nearby my place, maybe. Sometimes I can't control them. And I did not expect that they would be here today, because today is on Saturday. I expected them to make that noise pollution maybe on Sunday. So I don't know what is happening there. So it is unavoidable from my side.
It's fine, no, it's understandable. We don't have control over these things. So we'll just try and go as best we can. Hopefully they'll stop singing just now when they want to like give a preach or something. So welcome to everybody who's watching us from Kenya today as well for the first time. It's really good to know that we have so many people watching us. And of course, the show is also available online afterwards. You can watch anytime any of our old shows. We've got a reach of about 65,000 people we've reached so far with the show across Africa. Our largest viewership are from the countries of Madagascar, Ethiopia, and Nigeria. So welcome to everybody watching today, and to all those of you who haven't mentioned across the African continent. And it's wonderful to have Kenya represented here today. So, yeah, a warm welcome to you, Karibu, and Karibu, you just enjoy telling us. We're really interested to hear. It's great that you're working with the students, with the youth movement, which is where we have such a large number of youth on our continent in each and every country. And all our youth are very unhappy with the situation, the way things are going across Africa. Most are unemployed and eager to work and study and get stuck into their lives and careers, and are being held back by so much that is happening, which is all down to very much what you're talking about today. It goes back to the economic exploitation and colonialism on our continent, which still persists in some way or other, many ways, to this day. So it's really wonderful to have you with us, speaking from your point of view, because obviously you're very involved with the Pan-Africanism movement, and to see how things are going for you there in Kenya. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. Linda, as a continuation of the show, Kibwa is taking us through the history of Pan-Africanism, but also we wanted to look at how it has impacted Africa. We will talk about liberation from the colonial masters. But now we are asking ourselves the question that is posed, or stating that whereas we are different from the practice of the colonialists, we are not divided mentally from the culture and the practices and all that they preached when they took over our countries. So I want us to pick it from there. I want to ask Kibwa to take us through the history of Pan-Africanism in Kenya. What's the history of Pan-Africanism in Kenya, and what impact has it had on your progress as people in Kenya?
Okay, thank you so much. although some things have not been able to hear you, there were some challenges maybe with your network, if I'm not wrong. But what I've been able to hear you, I've heard you have maybe requested me to elaborate maybe history of Pan-Africanism in Kenya. Yeah, so basically, first of all, Pan-Africanism in Kenya, the pioneer or the very first maybe Kenyan to start this idea of Pan-Africanism in Kenya was Harry Dhuku. Harry Dhuku was a Kenyan elite, Kenyan elite from Kikuyu community, which Kikuyu, which is one of Kenyan communities. We have several communities in Kenya. He was the first person to come with that idea of Pan-Africanism, having borrowed it from people like Du Bois, and later from people, like Kwame Nkrumah. And then after Harry Dhuku, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta took over from there. He tried to preach the gospel of Pan-Africanism, even due to his style of leadership. It was a purely Africanist style, only that he did not adopt socialism, because for me, I do believe Africans should adopt socialism style of economy, although Mzee Jomo Kenyatta was a capitalist. But apart from being a capitalist, he was able to champion for Pan-Africanism in so many ways. He was able to build the movement of Pan-Africanism, although it did not peak. Several people came up with that idea. Several people tried to bring up the idea of Pan-Africanism in so many ways. But for me, what I will talk about is the movement which I've founded, the movement which I joined, because I will not talk more about the movement which I'm not so familiar with.
Sure.
Because I know so many people have tried to come up with Pan-African movement, but unfortunately, our African leaders, most of them are self-centered. Most of them are fed by European philosophy. So most of them don't support Pan-Africanism. Sincerely speaking,
Exactly.
if we decide to speak the truth, starting from Zen Daniel Arap Moi, who took over from Kenyatta, to Kibaki, to Uhuru Kenyatta, although Uhuru was a bit Pan-Africanist, but he did not support it the way we expected him to support. So for me, I will talk about Pan-African Congress of Kenya, which started journey with so many challenges. First, it was started in 2011, and that time I was not brave enough to understand more about Pan-Africanism. At that time, I'm so sure I had not withdrawn my English name, Dennis, which I withdrawn after realizing what is Pan-Africanism. So they started in 2011 there. It was a group of few elite people from Kenya, and they were graduates of universities, of which I believe youths, in most cases, youths are the people who come up with ideas which transform the community. Unfortunately, in our era, most youths are just ready to copy European style of living, and they are just ready to go abroad and study, do masters in European countries and American countries, and then come back in Africa or in their respective countries to boast and show us the way they are westernized. Yeah, so these people came up with that idea. First of all, after they started it failed terribly. They were facing financial challenges, or their financial muscles were not that stable. So they had to struggle so much, to an extent of maybe they could have a meeting today or once in a year, of which having that meeting once in a year, it was a great challenge for them, because in Kenya, for you to hold a serious meeting in a serious hotel, you need a large amount of money. Because as per me here at one university, I was planning to launch Pan-Africa chapter, student association chapter, because we are launching all chapters in all universities in Kenya, in fact across Kenya. So we are planning to launch our first chapter at one university, which we budgeted for it. It required about 97,000. That is approximately 100,000 Kenyan shillings, of which, sincerely speaking, for me, I can't be able to raise. Pan-African Congress of Kenya, I'm not so sure if it can be able to raise. So unless we just depend on donors and maybe Pan-Africanists or people who are willing to sponsor Pan-Africanism, or who are willing to sponsor that call in maybe in Kenya. So they had that challenge, of which it forced them to suspend their activities for almost 5 years, until I think 2016 is when they came again, having Uhuru Kenyatta as the president. They tried to reach him so that he could support them where possible, of which I can't blame him. He tried to support Pan-Africa on a capacity where maybe, or on size which he could be able. Pan-Africa, at least it tried to maneuver, or it tried to cope with all these challenges, because it is all about sacrifice. It is all about sacrificing yourself. You sacrifice your financial muscles, your time, your knowledge, and what have you, so that you can maybe try to bring that dream in existence. Because for something to come up, there must be some people who have already sacrificed for it. They are even ready to die for it, so that it can succeed. So they tried to reach even President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who is the president of Uganda, who is the patron of Pan-Africa here in Africa. He was ready. He absorbed us, by the way. He absorbed us. He started supporting us from Uganda. From there, he has been supporting us. We have been holding events. We have been enticing people to join us. By the way, right now we have so many people who have joined us, and we have so many people who are continuing joining us. In fact, even yesterday, I received a call from someone from Tanzania, wishing maybe requesting me to connect her with someone who will help maybe her to bring that dream of Pan-Africanism in Tanzania, because she believes that it has already died. There are no people who are ready to champion for it. Yeah, so Museveni has supported us. In Nairobi, we have our headquarters at Riverside. Yeah, Riverside Drive. That is opposite Westlands. That is where we are located. We have been trying to reach out. We have introduced chapters in 47 counties, because in Kenya we have 47 counties. We have several groups and peoples who have joined us. We are in that process of introducing chapters in all universities across the country. So far, we have introduced in so many universities. Like in December, we awarded several universities charters to start Pan-African Student Association in their respective institutions. Kenyatta University being one of them, University of Nairobi, we have Mount Kenya University, we have Pwani University, we have Jomo Kenyatta University of Science and Technology, and other universities have started showing interest in creating this association in the institutions, because I've received a request from KCA University. I've gotten a request from Kisii University in Kenya still. I've gotten another request from Technical University of Kenya and Technical University of Mombasa. They want to start their student association, their Pan-Africa Student Association. But for me, what I do, and I always encourage my fellow young people, is that when you want to start it, first, don't call me or don't reach out when you don't have something in existence. Just try and sacrifice yourself. Try and start a club in your respective institution. Then reach out, maybe tell me, maybe I have this association in my school and I want you to incorporate me, or I want a Pan-Africa Student Association to support us. From there, we will be ready to support you. For me, I do sacrifice. Even I'm not employed, I'm a student. The small amount of money I do get, I will just sacrifice it and support you with it in event that we will be having, or in everything. I will ensure that you are registered in Pan-Africa Congress of Kenya, and they will ensure that they have supported you when necessary, because they do support us with merchandise. When we want to do an event, they will bring partners who are going to sponsor our activities. In our December activity, we had Huawei who supported our activity, maybe, and so on. So that is what maybe that is what I can talk about Pan-Africanism, or a journey of Pan-Africanism in Kenya, because I've just said I will talk about only what I know. I will not talk about what I don't know. I will talk about something that I have experienced in. Yeah, but Pan-Africanism, especially in our universities, there are a lot of challenges. Okay, I have a problem. Maybe I know I do mix when I'm getting interviewed. I do mix challenges, what I'm experiencing and what have you. So maybe you will bear with me, or you will have to understand me, because maybe
that's fine. No problem.
Yeah, because I'm touching all sides.
We have heard from you. Thank you very much, Lynda. I think you now realize the challenges we have with these associations of Pan-Africanism in Africa. You can imagine that Kibwi, as a student, is very proud to be sponsored by Museveni of Uganda.
Yeah.
Me and you, Lynda, know how challenging that one statement can be. That
yes,
you have young people who look up to Museveni as a person that should be supporting Pan-Africanism in Africa and sponsoring university chapters, when the same patron does not promote the pillars, the virtues that can protect Africanism, that can protect the African people, that can protect the rights of Africans. So now that's the challenge. And for you as a leader, you may not understand the complexity of this very challenge of having a patron, of having politicians who in fact have betrayed the values of Africa, who in fact have betrayed human rights of their own people, but at the same time being seen as champions of Pan-Africanism. Now, if I may ask you, Kibwi, what are the objectives, or in what ways are you promoting Pan-Africanism in your university?
Okay, first of all, we are promoting Pan-Africanism in our institutions. Maybe first of all, by creating this association, that is the first thing you should all understand. That is what, first of all, we are using to promote Pan-Africanism in our universities. Because, but first of all, let me start by saying this, because before you maybe took over, I wanted to give us a statement, or maybe to say something. concerning universities, and I do feel bad when I have something unfinished in my mind. Yeah. So in universities, first of all, there are a lot of challenges when starting Pan-Africanism. First of all, when you just say you want to start Pan-African club in any institution, they do view it in this manner as a radical movement, which is being introduced in that institution. They believe that this movement is maybe coming to bring maybe to organize strikes, because they know in most cases Pan-Africanists are daring. Sometimes they don't mind as long as what they want is achieved. So they see it as a radical movement. And in fact, that is one of the challenges which most university students, leaders are facing when they want to start this association. And that is what is killing that spirit of Africanism in institutions. Like, for instance, here at Pan University, when I was registering Pan-Africa Student Association, the person who is in charge in the Dean of Students was telling me that I'm bringing a radical movement here at Pan University, which might cause strikes and what have you. So as a student leader, you must have to show them, you have to entice them, you have to tell them that we are not coming with Pan-Africa maybe to cause strikes and what have you. We are coming to break tribal barriers which we have in our institutions, because like here in Pan University, in most cases you find that people recognize themselves with tribes. Like for me, I come from Meru, I'm a Marian. I say I do relate so much with people from Meru community, someone from Kikuyu, someone from Luya community, Kamba community, or Swahili community in Kenya. You see that kind of mentality. You have to convince them that is what you are coming to kill. You have to convince them you are coming to discuss social, political, and economic issues affecting Africa. Maybe you can try to come up with possible solutions. Maybe even if you are not in a position, maybe to implement these solutions, maybe if I'm given a podium, or if I'm given a chance, maybe to address people or to talk about Pan-Africanism or to talk about these challenges which we are maybe facing. Maybe someone who is in power, who is in possession of maybe changing these things, maybe that person might buy my idea. My ideas will come as a result of possible solutions which we discussed as Pan-Africa. You see, so for us, maybe what we do organize like debates. We organize debates, like here at Pan University every Thursday we have a FESECO meeting. We debate. We debate on social, economic, and political issues or affecting Africa, as I've said. We discuss their possible solutions, because for me, I don't believe in discussing something without solutions, because when you discuss at something and then you don't provide a solution, it's just something which is done. It has no sense. It has no direction, of course. So we do conduct our meetings. We discuss these ideas. We try to teach fellow students maybe what they call or what is being African. We try to maybe revive the culture of Africans. Maybe here, like next month we have Cultural Week here at Pan University. I've registered Pan-Africa in that institution which is fighting Pan-Africanism. I've registered Pan-Africa movement here to participate in that Cultural Week, to try and teach people, or to try and teach students who will be around, and maybe visitors who will visit us that day, and maybe members of the administration will be around, to try and teach them the importance of unity, the importance of unity as Africans, what we should be advocating for, such kind of things. We do advocate about promoting these freedom songs, African songs, we do give presentations in any podium or any event that we invited, or that I get a chance to maybe to request to be given a chance. We give presentations about Africanism. So that is what we basically do as a Pan-Africa Student Association, and that is what I encourage other student leaders who are doing or who are willing to start Pan-African Student Associations in their respective institutions to do. Yeah.
That's great, yes.
You take over from there. I have a lot of input.
That's great, yes. Well, it's the whole thing. I mean, the Pan-Africanism movement started in, I think it was 1900, and we have to ask ourselves why now, over 100 years later, we're still fighting for the voice of Pan-Africanists and the message to put out that not much has really changed significantly in over 100 years for Black African people. The same things that Pan-Africanism was set up, the movement to champion against, are still things today. The colonization of Africa by white Europeans and the economic exploitation. We're still being exploited economically today as a continent. And the African unity, we are also split in our own countries, our own tribal fighting and issues. And we even, a country like South Africa is very negative towards neighbors and calls them foreigners, and there are all sorts of issues there as well. We still seem to be grappling with these same issues worldwide as well for Black people across the world. I mean, we've just recently, a couple of years ago, we had the George Floyd BLM movement, and then before that, I think it was 2005, we had the movement through Africa of getting rid of all our colonial statues of people like Cecil John Rhodes and all these white supremacists that are still held in such high honor in Africa. And I just think that the fact that we are still 120 odd years later, still fighting for the same recognition of Black people worldwide, let alone in Africa, as being no different to anybody else, completely equal to the rest of the world, in fact better in so many ways. So I think it's really good to have a youth movement that's really strong as well, because it's the youth that can also see things from a different perspective. We have not seen the changes that we should have. We still are, the Black people are oppressed. Even people in Africa do not see themselves as being as good, as worthy. I think it's because our history has been lied about as well. If we knew our true history, if Black African people knew what an incredible, amazing continent of people they were before slavery and colonization, exploring the world and introducing civilization to so many different parts of present-day Europe, it's something that all Black people should be so proud of. But unfortunately, our history is lied about. A lot is hidden from us. Even things that happened during colonization, which has been skewed. It's only ever been told by the side of the oppressor, never by the side of the Black African person about what actually happened on this continent. And I see it myself, and it seems to have sped up in the last 10, 15 years. Black people are losing a complete sense of cultural identity. It's almost like it's a shame now. If I have male friends who say get a bonus or have extra money, they will use that money to go and buy an iPhone, for example. No one will ever think to buy cattle, because that's primitive now to most people here. If you ask any African man, when is the rain coming, he has to check the weather app. We are losing connection and lusting for all things to do with the Western world. The West is not better. I don't know, we need to form a cultural identity as Black African people and be proud of who you are and who you come from, great people. To try, I have a big issue as well with all the women that bleach their skin and straighten their hair and everything. Why on earth do you want to just take your own identity of black people and be proud of it. It's because the world has this negative image. I'm a white African, but I've lived and grown up with black people my entire life, and the black race is a much nicer race than my race in general. Wonderful, wonderful people. You have so much to be proud of and to be thankful for, and to just stand proud. And I think that our history has to be told correctly so that black people can know that we have never been a primitive continent with, which needed the colonizers to come and educate us. We didn't need that. And, we were fine just on our own. And I think that we are moving so far away from this. We don't produce our own food. We are all eating fast foods now. And we don't even know how to, some people don't even know how to cook. And we tend to look at grandparents or great-grandparents that live in rural areas as primitive. You're almost ashamed of them, when those are the very people who you should be aspiring to be like. There's this whole thing with marriage and weddings and polygamy being a sin and having a child out of wedlock being a sin. That is all Western ideals that have been ingrained into black African culture. That is not who black African people are. And I see it as a white person who has seen both sides of it, and I just wish that I could get the message out there to say to black people, as I've lived in Africa my whole life, and I'm an African, I love Africa. It's so wrong that black people are aspiring to be westernized. To me, it's just, I cry, I get so upset about it, because I just wish that everybody could see. We should be setting the trends here for the rest of the world. The way that things used to be done are the ways that worked and the ways of our ancestors. Like you said now, how you changed your name back to your African name and you use it. And that's fantastic, because most people here in Africa, they have a Christian name, which means that you are still enslaved in a way to the colonizers, because you've gone away. And the problem I have is that when we got our independences, we never reverted back to that. Everybody just carried on in the Western sort of thing, and never did black African people completely just abandon all the white things like the churches, the religion, the wedding ceremony, the fact that it's not good to have a child if you're not married, and all those things. We never got back, black people never got back to who they were before the colonialists came. And I don't know how that can change, because so much time is passing now that people are losing touch. And once our oral history is gone, the people of our generation, our grandparents and great-grandparents have passed away, the ones that still remember those traditions and cultures. What is left for Africa, for black African people? If nowadays everybody just aspires to social media and to all the trappings and designer goods and everything of the West, and I believe that is completely destroying the fabric of black society, of family. It's splitting families, it's splitting this whole new movement of empowering women, empowering women, empowering women. Is all well and good, but I think it's being overdone, because we're not doing anything for our men. Every program out there is women's rights, women's awareness, women's empowerment. There's nothing really for our men that's equal to that. And women are now being taught that the ways that they used to do things, that was, you were subdued and it was a submissive role as a woman, when it wasn't. Black women and black men were always completely equal. They helped each other. It was a symbiotic relationship. To the outsider, it might have looked like a dominant relationship, but there was mutual respect there. Now that's also been changed, and I see such a breakup in black families. So many women raising children, single parent families. The fathers are made out to be bad fathers and things. There's a split between family units. There's a split between children. There's a split, and it's just destroying the true African culture. So I'm just giving you my opinion as a white person, as a white African here, that I've seen happen over the years. And then you look at things like I said happening overseas with all the BLM movements and things like only just recently wanted to have the statues come down and that. It's happening all over the world. Black people worldwide are marginalized, whether people say it or not. There is an ingrained racism and attitude in my race, the white race, that even though they say they're not racist and they accept everybody, they still have such ingrained false ideas, because racism also was something that was created to split people, you know, and that also came back to, and we have to work together as people, and we have to save Africa and to save our continent and to prosper. We can't do Africa the Western way. So I'm very, very much behind the whole movement of anything that is to do with reclaiming Black heritage and culture and traditions, truly doing that before it's lost forever. So, Kato, I don't know, Kato, from your point of view as a male, I know you and I have had lots of discussions about this imbalance between men and women on this continent. And most of the women now will only be with a man if he's got money, what he can give them. You know, I want the female empowerment and equality, except when it comes to finances, then the man must provide. I speak a lot about that. There's a definite split. I just wish people could wake up and see it for what it is.
Yeah, thank you very much, Linda. That was very important input from you there. I really appreciate it. Looking at ourselves from all those angles as people in Africa. Black, white, Asians, all of us, once we are in Africa and we work for Africa, we belong here. We are Africans. And I want to appreciate you from that perspective. Someone sent a question, which was running on the screen from your university, I think it's called Muhammad, was asking if Pan-Africanism should be centered on ethnicity or something beyond that. To me, because we heard you talking about people of different ethnicities, tribes, you know, wanting to join within their own groupings and then affecting the larger image of Africa. And Pan-Africanism should go beyond that, should be able to bring people together, regardless of their ethnicities, their tribes, their clans. You know, people should come together and work for and in the interest of Africa. Now, what we see today, as Linda has pointed out previously and today, we see a continent with very disunited people. That's why I was wondering, but of course I could excuse you as a student, how you have a patron who has mortgaged the biggest piece of the country in Uganda to imperialists, and then is busy promoting the virtues of Pan-Africanism in an association. So that's the contradiction, because when we look at Africa and we look at the challenges of Africa, we ask ourselves, have we gotten the independence that you people claim to have? Have we got the economic independence that you people claim to have, when our economies cannot even provide enough employment for their people? When you don't have control of the minerals in our countries, when you don't control the banking sector in our countries, how do we say that we have achieved economic independence? Have we achieved political independence as people in Africa? Have we achieved political independence apart from celebrating the Independence Day? If you look at Kenya today, are you politically independent? Do your politicians make decisions that favor Kenyans or decisions that favor companies, multinational companies? So these are things we need to look at when talking about Pan-Africanism. What is there for Africa? What is there for people in Africa that benefits them? When you look at the economy, when you look at the politics, when you look at the structures of our societies, are we a united people that promote Africa, that promote the virtues of Africa, bring Africans together. How far has your education system gone in teaching the history of Africa, the treasures of Africa that have been hidden by the education curricula? As a political scientist, a student of political science, how much have you learned about the history of Africa in your universities? So these are things that should be concerning you as students. What type of things are you learning? What is your curriculum based on? Does it promote African virtues? Does it promote the progress of Africa, the economy of Africa? Or it promotes westernization of an African mind? Does your education help you to promote the virtues that can put Africa back to the level where it's supposed to be? Or we continue to glorify the Western world with our education system? The brainwashing continues in our very education system, where you go to seek knowledge, but get miseducated. So, as Lynda has been posting over and over, the minerals and who controls them in Africa, the education sector and who controls it in Africa. How do Pan-African movements help empower the students to understand how things should be done, what has gone wrong, and what should be done to correct the errors? That should be the importance of the Pan-African movement. Today in Uganda, as I speak, the Pan-African movement has been biased by people supporting the ruling class, the regime. Now, when you find yourselves having patrons that basically deny people their rights, that basically mortgage the resources of the country to foreign companies, how dare you, can we be talking about Pan-Africanism? Because what is there as resources do not benefit the people of the country. Companies, multinational companies, are benefiting from the resources of the country that should be benefiting the wananchi, the common man. So how dare do we talk about Pan-Africanism? Because in reality, it's not there. When we talk about our patrons who have betrayed the virtues of Pan-Africanism, how dare do we say we have Pan-Africanism in Africa? To me, Lynda, in a nutshell, I think it has lost virtue. To me, the whole concept of Pan-Africanism has been derailed by politicians who, in practice, are doing things that take Africa back, that keep the African child in chains. Look at Kenya and look at their president, for example. Look at the dealings he has with multinational companies, a businessman who is a politician, who promotes oligarchy, who promotes Western companies to come and take as much as they can from the Kenyan people, leaving millions of Kenyans in abject poverty. And then we say we have Pan-African leaders. To me, it's a no. I think the whole concept, in my view, has lost meaning. I don't know about you, Lynda, but that's my take.
Yes, it has. Well, I know that a lot of the people. First, we must just say that we're not singling Kenya out here. This is happening in every single country on our continent. It's not just Kenya. But I mean, what's going on in South Africa is actually, it's so unbelievable. It's everywhere. And I think the thing is that what I've kind of the last couple of years, I'm sure you found it as well, Kato, is that a lot of people are turning against the Pan-Africanism because, like I say as well, it's very hard to respect some organization or a movement when you have brutal African dictators that are exploiting the people in their country, like Yoweri Museveni and Muhammad Buhari of Nigeria and all the other dictator presidents, which is every single one of them. It's very hard to actually, I always joke and say, you know, they have all these meetings, these African union meetings and all the rest of it. It's very hard to get your heart and everything behind a movement when you know what atrocities are happening in those countries that are being ignored. It's the same thing as that I do not believe that the United Nations, the African Union, or Pan-Africanism were today what they were originally set up to be. The same as the ANC government in South Africa, Nelson Mandela, that whole movement, it's not what was. It's changed over time. It has been, all these things I believe have been infiltrated, and they have been contaminated and compromised, because we see for ourselves blatant human rights abuses across our continent that the United Nations aren't doing much about. I mean, Uganda is a prime example of that that's happening now. They will turn an eye against human rights abuses because they're after your gold and your minerals, and they're in cahoots with our presidents. So I can't stand. I think that we need to. The whole concept of Pan-Africanism is fantastic, but there again, I think it's something that times have changed in 120 years, and a lot hasn't changed. So we need to maybe rethink labeling it, coming up with our own ideas and ideologies for Pan-Africanism as African people going forward, rebrand it and make it ours from our generation. Because what it was and what it is now, like you say, when you have someone like Museveni who is supporting it, you know that he's only doing that in case the movement grows so strong that it becomes a threat to the East African presidents who are all looting the mineral resources from Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda. That's the thing. But the hard thing is that, you know yourself, with things you're trying to start up, we could get funding for a lot of things that we do easily if we were prepared to align ourselves with certain organizations. But we won't do it because on principle, we can't do it. We can't allow ourselves to be funded by an organization that we don't believe in ourselves. So our little organizations are fledgling organizations, and they don't really take off, or they get to a certain stage and then they just stay at that stage, which is also why I believe we need to understand one thing as African people. 90% of us are good people. We've all got the same views and values in life. We want the same things. It's the 10% of evil that are ruling over us, that are destroying our continents. And it's like the old John Lennon saying, the people, us, are stronger than the people in power. We just need to see that. For something like this Pan-Africanism rebranded for what it should be, a little group in Kenya, a little group in Nigeria is not going to have much clout if you don't take funding from government people. But if you stand together, your little groups in Nigeria, Kenya, Malawi, Ghana, Uganda, South Africa, all those little groups together as one unit of unified African people, that's when I believe we can start to make changes. Because it's very difficult in Africa. You reach a stage where you can be funded, you can make money, you can do lots of things that you want to do, but there is always a compromise you have to take. And for those of us will not compromise, I will not compromise what I stand for anything. I won't do it. Even if I was offered all the money to do everything I wanted to do in human rights and do good things like build humanism schools and put proper history programs into all our African schools. It's just, there's certain things you can't do, because I do feel that little movements like this can be seen as a threat, and they try and get involved in those movements as well. And that's where I don't agree with it. Because for starters, the biggest thing you have to work on is the education system. Now, the education system in Africa is owned by Pearson International UK. It's a London-based company that's always controlled our education. From the time when the colonial terrorists first came to our continent, it was built, a lot of it was built on a structure that Cecil John Rhodes, who was the supremacist, who ruined my country and stole all our diamonds and gold to help found De Beers diamonds with things he'd looted from South Africa and Zambia as well. He put a racially biased education system into place. I was horrified so many years later to see echoes of it in the South African education system. And then I started investigating it and realized that every single country ever colonized by the British still has this in their government education systems. We've got to start asking our presidents why. And the African Union that's been blah, blah for how many years about having an Africa-wide curriculum. We don't have one yet. Why don't we have one yet? These are the basic things that the African Union and all these movements should be working on first starting with the children. Religion is something that was introduced as a tool of oppression and control by the British. Any African president that's standing in any country for election who is saying anything about God or Allah and praying or bringing that into his campaigns, who is a Christian or a Muslim or a Hindu, is not a true African. You don't want him as a president. He does not know his true African roots. He's not proud of who he is as an African if he's doing that. That's my first thing that I say to everybody. You cannot vote anybody or any political party into power that is based on a colonial, that still believes in a colonial oppression, tool of oppression and control. We see how big a role religion plays in our government, in our politics. It's not the African way. Then we have the extreme where people are doing these ridiculous witchcraft, money ritual things, sacrifices, and they think that that's what our ancestors did, but they didn't. But nobody knows. And I just think that it's up to the people leading us to set the example and to set things right. And I don't see in a single African country anybody that's got their own education system in place, anybody that has a completely secular country where we accept people of all religions and all beliefs to live together, but who don't allow one religion. So it's like a football team. You can support Man U, I support Liverpool. It's just, I'm not going to enforce that on your life and have it in your face all the time. It's what I do in my own time. And that's what we have to see religion as. So there's this whole question, Kato, and you know what, it's all the movements, and it's not just this, and it's just, people need to see what's happening here. And we have to if we want to make changes, we can't make changes the way things have always been done. If you do what you've always done, you'll always get the same results at the end of the day. We have to find a new identity to move forward as African people.
Thank you so much, Lynda, for that insight. We have Kibwi back. Kibwi, as we conclude, please give us your concluding shots for the show. Back to you, Kibwi.
Okay, first of all, I will apologize for my network. My Wi-Fi was unstable. There were some issues. You understand these issues with technology. Yeah. And then I will start, first of all, by answering the question which was asked by Mohammed about Pan-Africanism being based, can you pardon that question, maybe, if you might?
He was asking whether we should be basing Pan-Africanism on ethnicity or go beyond ethnicities. Like you said.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, what I can just say about that thing is we fight something according to our capabilities. For me, as a student leader, where I am, I'm dealing with students from different ethnicities. And to have a united Africa, we must break these chains of ethnicity. Is it true? Yeah, we must break these chains. And by starting where I am today, as a student leader, if I fight these barriers, these ethnicity barriers, and then maybe tomorrow you find me in maybe a different leadership position, maybe in Kenya, that's when now, me personally as Mugambi Kibwi, I can now start maybe bringing African countries together. Although I must be ready for attacks from Western countries, like the way they did to Muammar Gaddafi, our great African leader. I must be ready for that. But if tomorrow I will be maybe the president of our country, that is Kenya, or maybe I'll be the governor of Meru County. Maybe if I'm the governor of Meru County, at that level, I will be fighting and basing my argument that maybe Kenya, we should break these chains of being, these tribal chains of being a Meru, a Kikuyu, and what? Because that is the level that I am in. You see, if I'm in university, that is the level that I'm in. If I will be the president of Kenya tomorrow, that is the level that I will be. I will be in capacity to maybe to maybe say that Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Morocco, Chad, we are together. We are one country. We are one country as Africa, you see. So that is something that we should understand. We cannot fight maybe the battle that we cannot be. Don't fight a losing battle. Fight a battle that you are sure of winning. Do something that you are sure of maybe succeeding. After succeeding what you are doing, maybe tomorrow, if you're in a different level, try something else that maybe is a bit advanced, that maybe the level is a bit high compared to the level which was there before. That is something that I can maybe add on that issue, clarify that that question of Mohammed. Mohammed is a good friend of mine, by the way. I congratulate him, by the way. He's our new member in Pan-Africa Student Association, Pan University chapter. He joined us yesterday, not yesterday, on Thursday. He joined us on Thursday. So I'm so happy if he joined us on Thursday and he is here. So it means that he is a Pan-African. He has that passion. It is just because he had not gotten maybe a chance or a platform maybe to join fellow Pan-Africanists. Mohammed, I'm so happy with you, by the way. Feel welcome in Pan-Africa family. We are together. Let's all say long live Africa. So maybe to my conclusion, what I will say, you as leader and your friend, you are at maybe bigger level than me. Start advocating maybe and breaking this chains of being a Kenyan, a Ugandan, a Zimbabwean, a South African, maybe Tanzanian. No, because you are at a different level compared to us. No, start breaking those chains. Start now fighting that philosophy or that mentality, that mental slavery. That is mental slavery, by the way. Let us be frank. Because the Europeans, they gave us freedom that we wanted. They gave us our land. They gave us our maybe leadership, maybe so that we can take leadership mantle of our countries. But they colonized our thoughts to an extent that we must be relying on them. Maybe on that issue, the leader was talking about economic issue of African countries. We have presidents or leaders who are elected not because of maybe they have ideas. They elected because they come from this community and this community. That's why I'm fighting that that ethnicity idea. Because like in Kenya, let's say, let me talk about somewhere where I know. I will not talk about somewhere where I don't know. Like in Kenya, in most cases, you find that this bigger community, like Mount Kenya region, that is Kikuyu and Meru, they do believe they can produce a president. If someone stand there and say, I'm going to vie as a president, I'm from Mount Kenya. In Kenya, people do believe, like, if Mugambi Kibwi decide to vie as a president, having come from Mount Kenya community, definitely he might win. Because if I'm going to vie as a president, of course, maybe the person who is maybe from Kikuyu community, you are going to have a dialogue, we have a talk so that maybe we can combine forces so that we can be like one. You see, like Kalenjin community, they are still majority, or they are second or third majority community in Kenya. They do believe if they have someone who is standing as a president, he must win. And that is the problem we have. So you find that a leader who has ideas, who has manifesto, who has African in this is mind, thought, heart, body, and what have you, that person cannot get a chance to lead this country because of what? Tribalism. That's why I'm talking, that's why I'm my argument so much on tribalism. That person cannot get a chance maybe to lead this country because of tribalism. Like we have some minor community here in Kenya, like Kuria community, Mbere community. Mbere community, it is Orembo community. It is so difficult for them to produce a president here in Kenya. It is not like Tanzania, but you find that minority communities, most of the times they do produce presidents. It is totally different like here in Kenya. So you find that it will be so difficult for these people. Maybe if I'm elected, because we do say democracy is all about majority, because I come from a region with majority maybe voters, and I have forces maybe from people. Maybe people who are supporting me are coming maybe from communities who have majorities, and the other communities and what have you. I definitely must win, but I don't have ideas to run the country. That's the problem. In Africa, we have leaders who have no ideas to run the country, but leaders who have ideas to run the country are not given a chance to run the country. That is the challenge.
That's a good one. That's a good conclusion.
Yeah.
Very true.
And then there's something again I wanted to talk about. Okay, for me, Johari Kamuguta Museveni sponsored our Pan-Africa Congress of Kenya. He has supported us, by the way, together with Kagame and what have you. But you find that most African youths or leaders, some of them, because I know and I believe, because I've gotten a chance to interact with so many leaders. Maybe, by the way, in Kenya, I've interacted with so many leaders. Most leaders, they do believe that Museveni is just a dictator. For me, I totally disagree with that idea, not because he has sponsored Pan-Africa. Not really. I do disagree with that idea because of what? Museveni himself is a leader, is African leader. He was elected by Africans. That is something that we should all agree. But having been elected by Africans, maybe you justify that these Europeans, they do bring this philosophy of you as an Africa, you should not lead for many years. You should lead maybe for maximum of 10 years, and then you leave the office and give another person a chance, of which I partially do agree with that idea, because we have so many leaders. Like here at Pan University, we decide to say maybe our president comes from Lakeside region, is called Alan Ochieng. I do recognize him, by the way, and he's supportive, by the way. He do support Pan-Africa Student Association here at Pan University so much. I respect him so much, by the way. But if he says that because he can maybe finish his degree and enroll another degree again and enroll another degree again, so and decide that he will be running for the presidency of one university now and then, of course he will not give us chance maybe to lead and maybe to grow our leadership, maybe skills, because some of us still want to be future leaders of our country. Is that true? Yeah, but Museveni is wrong. Is not wrong. Our African cultures recognized kings and leaders who had hereditary leadership, whereby you could find that if my father Kibwi was Jorincheke elder in Meru community, because if you study the history of Meru community, you find that Jorincheke were elders who are running Meru community. In fact, that's why I'm called Mugambi. The person who called me Mugambi, my grandpapa, he was a Jorincheke elder. He was a leader of Jorincheke. That's why I'm Mugambi. So that hereditary leadership. If after me, it's my son. After my son, his son takes over. And what have you? Why don't we say that Queen Elizabeth was a dictator? She was a dictator because she died as a queen. You see, that slave mentality is what we should move out of it. But after all, even though we are talking about that, for me, I do say Museveni should still give other leaders chance, maybe to lead Uganda, maybe so that we can see maybe how Uganda can be. But for me, I don't blame him. He's okay. He's right. He's not wrong. You see, another thing that leader was talking about, it is called what? Racism. For me, I don't believe that white people or European people are racist or African people are racist. For me, I believe that racism is your personal. It's your personal decision. It's your personal decision. I can decide maybe to discriminate leader because she's a white African, or maybe she's white, maybe because of his color, of her color. That is my personal decision. That is not African decision. You understand? Leader can decide to discriminate me because I'm black. That is a decision, not a European or white people decision. That is something that we must understand. Look at there was a day I was reading something, a content to do with this rapper called Wayne. It's called Wayne. Yeah, I'm not a fan of those songs. I'm a fan of reggae and bongo, by the way. So I'm not a fan of those songs, but I know him is a rapper. Yeah, Wayne. If I think you might be knowing him. You remember when was the time when he tried to commit suicide because maybe his parents were denying him maybe a chance to pursue what he loved most. That is music. Like the way, for me, I loved Africanism and politics so much. Maybe if my parents could have forced me to continue doing education, you know, I could not be comfortable. So Wayne was not comfortable, of course. And then he decided to say, like, if my parents are not giving me a chance to do what I love, then life is not worth it. I better die. I better die than living. And then he decided to commit suicide, of course. He took a pistol, he shot himself. You remember, I remember in that article I was reading, the first police to enter in that room were black police. Yeah, they were black police. They did not mind about him because he was not dead. He was just bleeding. You see, they didn't mind. What they were minding of is they were saying he was a drug abuser. So they ran to search for drugs in that house where he used to live. But a white man, a European police, a white police came and rescued the Wayne. He took him to hospital. When he was treated, maybe he came back to normal, maybe, and today he is a king of that sector of music. I'm not so sure of it because I'm not their fan, but today he is recognized in that sector so much. So can we say that African or black police had human spirit in their hearts? You see, that's why I'm saying racism and what have you, it is a personal decision, and we as Pan-Africanists should preach that, knowing then that is a personal decision. By the way, for me, in fact, I will invite you when we will be launching Pan-Africa Student Association here at Pan University. If you will be able to join, I know you are in Uganda, my brother. I was told the leader is in South Africa. I don't know if it is true, or maybe she's in a different country, maybe. I will invite you if you will be able to come, and I will invite Europeans and Africans who I will be able to reach, because we are one. We should preach that of being one as African, as human, or as a human race. Yeah, that is all I can say. Maybe because of time.
Thank you very much, Kibwi. We have listened to you. We've had the chance to hear from you. Your thoughts are very appreciated. We want to encourage you to continue researching, to continue reading, to continue developing more intellectually, and become the best Pan-African leader you can be for your country and for your continent. We thank you for your time, and we hope that we shall be able to host you again on a different occasion. Thank you so much for your contribution. Back to Lynda as we conclude.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on the show today. And I think it's true what you say about we all have to pick our own battles in life. Often you look at the whole picture of everything that's going wrong. We can't tackle it. We've got to start with the small things where we can make a difference. And my respect to you for that, because there's not many youth these days, worldwide even, that are prepared to actually, at such a young age, become proactive and to be so passionately involved with something that they know is very important. And I think that's wonderful, because we need young leaders that people can aspire to be like. And I think that that's really great. And like you say, as you navigate through, you realize the bigger problems that you can then tackle. And also a lot of the time in Africa, it's establishing yourself, getting support, making a name for yourself, so that people will trust you and believe you when you do tackle the big issues, and that you have that support base. So I completely get that. And also, just saying to you, it's like the same as with you talk about the tribalism, and it's the same all over Africa. People will vote for a party because traditionally it's what their parents voted for, or it's from the region or whatever. And I think that at the end of the day, we have to look at this from a humanism perspective, is that There are good and bad people in every tribe, every race, every country. At the end of it, every religion, at the end of the day, it's about all the good people, no matter who you are, what tribe you represent, or what country you represent, or what race you represent, coming together as a force against all the things that are wrong in this world, and working together, even if we've got different religions, different outlooks, we come from different regions. It's working together for the good of all humanity and uniting as an African continent, not just thinking what we're going to do in our own countries, but elsewhere as well. And no, it's really, I'm a Zimbabwean, but I've lived most of my life in East Africa. Tanzania is where my home is, my permanent home, and I'm in South Africa now. So I do know, and I know the Meru tribe as well from Tanzanian side as well. So I've worked with a lot of Meru people, and I mean all the people are wonderful in East Africa. They are all my people. So that's where I spent most of my life. So it's great having you on the show and just hearing nice young voices, Kato, I'm sure, with new ideas coming forward. And the thing is that we need good leaders in place to guide people as well, which is also important. So it's old and young as well, you know, connecting. So thanks very much. It's great. And to all the people who joined us today from Kenya, from East Africa.
Thank you very much, Linda. Thank you very much, Kibwi, Mugambi. And thank you very much for everyone for watching this show. We shall be back next Saturday with yet another topical discussion. Be well, stay safe, and keep the African hope alive. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.